Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks.
And welcome into Poke the Bear episode 331, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. I am Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. You know, usually at the beginning, I like to plug that people should subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. Listen, we have lots of podcasts, Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat, Pucks with Haggs, live streams at the off season, all that good stuff. You can see us. And then I say, well, if you don't like to look at us, you can listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And I had a funny experience on Tuesday night that made me realize there are a lot of people who still just listen to us via audio. And that's fine. I was meeting one of my buddies at Fenway. Yes, I've been going to a lot of Red Sox games recently. And his friend was there. And I just started kind of, talking with his friend. What do you do? Blah, 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 blah. And he asked me what I did. I said, I'm in sports media. And he said, what do you do? I said, I'm the editor of New England Hockey Journal. He's like, oh, cool, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, the hockey world, do you know Conor Ryan at all? He's one of my roommates is like a huge fan of his. And I'm like, funny you say that.
Be like, no.
That guy sucks. That
guy's a loser.
Oh, I bombed his wedding. But anyway, I protested. I said, funny you say that. I host podcasts with him. And he goes, wait, are you Evan Marinofsky? And I was like, yeah.
The one and only.
I'm him. And he's like, my God, the voice, I could kind of tell. And I realized he listens to us. He didn't know what we looked like. And I got it. So
what a lucky guy.
That. I know. And then he saw me in person.
To be so unburdened by that knowledge.
Don't meet your heroes, kids.
Yeah.
Don't meet your heroes. But I realize lots of people do still listen. And we appreciate that. So make sure to go subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. By the way, I at least do not get recognized very much. So there's not a common occurrence. We're not fighting the paparazzi back on Lansdowne Street. No way.
I do it every time I go to get my Dunkin' in Southie. Every single time someone spots me. So
it'd be nice if Ducks realized that and said, we should give him some sort of sponsorship.
You'd think, Evan, but
hasn't happened yet.
They're being coy right now. I don't like it.
It must. I think the Cheesecake Factory should honestly, after that tweet, that's what.
Dude, I should live at the Cheesecake Factory in the Brew just for what I did for that company.
You could live there for 365 days and never have the same meal twice.
Oh, ever. Absolutely, dude. It's like literally like the menu is so large. It's like the Old Testament that like Indiana Jones pulled that out of the Ark of the Covenant in the first movie. It's gigantic. It's not even a menu. It's a tome. It's a tome of 4,000 calorie baked cheeses.
It's a doctrine of just every sandwich you could imagine.
It's a manifesto of high calorie artery clogging shit.
And we're presented by the Cheesecake Factory today.
Yes,
Use
exactly.
promo code Poke the Bear. You get 30% off your next order.
30% off the 30 meals you can get in one sitting.
That's right. Everything you can get. Anyway, big news. Big news dropped on Tuesday. Don Sweeney extended by the Bruins for 2 seasons after this current one. And I was actually at a Dunks, and I fell to my knees in the Dunks. I was like, but I genuinely was in a Dunks when I was looking at it, and I was like, oh boy, these replies, these comments, these quotes, going to be quite interesting. I don't think fans are going to be super pumped about Don Sweeney getting an extension, especially after this past season. And we'll kind of start with our initial reactions to it. I believe, and this isn't really informed, I think this is kind of how it's going. I think they signed him early because it helps with the head coaching search. Like, that's my own view of it. I think that's why they're doing this now. I went along with the assumption that they were going to kind of take this off season and use next season to sort of be the barometer of whether or not they bring him back. I think stuff came up with the head coaching searches. I think, people keep mentioning Tocchet. And I didn't want Tocchet here. I didn't think he was a fit, but it wouldn't shock me. And we've talked about this a number of times with the coaching search. Do you want to sign on for a lame duck GM? And I think my guess is that people brought that up, that came up. And that's probably why Sweeney got extended when he did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even Cam Neely spoke to Jim McBride of the Boston Globe about this and pretty much said the exact same thing. I have the quote right here. Hopefully, like my broadcasting thing on StreamYard is like super bootleg right now. So if I
It actually looks okay. We're good.
Okay, good. So I don't know what it is with like switching the tabs, but it messes things up. So if I start, all of a sudden it turns into black and white, and it's like I'm like all of a sudden I'm sent back to like Steamboat Willie. Like I'm in the Take on Me music video. Don't blame me. But so the quote from Cam Neely to Jim McBride talking about why now for the extension for Don Sweeney. Quote, for me, it was like, okay, if I'm comfortable with his plan moving forward, it can't just be for 1 year, in my opinion. And then obviously if Don's going through a coaching search, it's something where it would be a little short-sighted if he's looking for a coach that he's looking to hire for any length of time and he's going into the last year of his deal. I certainly didn't think that would make any sense whatsoever if I was comfortable in the direction he wanted to take the franchise. So pretty much what you said, right? Like if beyond...
And I hadn't seen that quote.
Yeah. So, and it's something that I think a lot of people like talked about as soon as the extension was announced of, is that just the optics? Is it projecting like stability for any new coach? Which I think plays a part of it, but I think it was for the Bruins as you're going through and starting to, go down the list of coaching candidates. Yeah, I think you want to project like some stability. No coach, whether it's established guy who's been in a different spots in the NHL or even like a younger coach who's waiting for his first opportunity, doesn't matter who it is. You still want to go into a new situation thinking like, hey, there could be some growing pains along the way. It's not a guarantee. Like I think you and I, Evan, are hopeful this team can kind of at least get back to being somewhat competitive or at least they're on the upswing, but that's not set in stone. So if like things really go to shit next year, does a coach all of a sudden want to go into his second year, with those question marks and all of a sudden you don't have a GM there, the guy that hired you, the guy that probably pitched you as to what the 5 to 10 year plan of the franchise is. And all of a sudden he's not there anymore. Are you kind of rudderless? So yeah, I do think, again, I'm not surprised regardless of the coaching search that the Bruins, agreed to an extension with Don Sweeney. I also don't read too much into like the weight of what the contract really means, because I still think that he's got a very, very short leash. And if things do go to hell again next year, wouldn't surprise me if they still move on from him. But I do think in terms of the short term, as you're going through this offseason to-do list, and the top thing and the thing that's going to set the tone for the entire year is going to be finding a new head coach. I do think this was a requirement. You had to sign the extension, show that he's here for at least a couple of years for now, and show whatever your new head coach is that, yeah, we're a team that's retooling, we're rebuilding, we're doing whatever you want to call it, but we have some structure in place for you to jump into here.
People keep mentioning, it's just veteran coaches who want to have the stability of the GM. Young coaches should be happy to get an NHL job, so they'll take any NHL job. They don't care. And I keep looking at that, and I'm like, if you're Misha Donskoff, right? You were just on the an assistant for Team Canada and Four Nations, which as a true assistant coach is impressive as hell over someone like a Paul Maurice on that bench. And someone that, his stock is wicked high. It is. Like, if you have all these other options, like if Seattle comes calling and Chicago comes calling, or Pittsburgh, like, obviously Boston is the most historic of those, is one of the more historic of those franchises. Chicago obviously is an original six team as well. But like, you're going to look at those other teams and say, well, the GM is more stable. I know the GM's going to be there past 1 year. This is, this is probably the biggest, the highest my stock is going to be. I'm going to the place that looks the most stable. And I think the Bruins had a little bit of optics there where they didn't look stable. And I know Neely and Jacobs have given full-throated endorsements of Sweeney in the past, but I keep going back to that quote at the end of season press conference where Neely kind of danced around the idea of a Sweeney extension and played a little hard to get. And I think people saw that and said, interesting. And it's funny because going into this offseason, I didn't really I figured, Sweeney will be back. No problem after this coming year. He'll get his extension and that'll be that. And then I heard that quote from Neely and I was like, And if we're having those thoughts, coaches and other organizations are looking at that and going, oh, I don't know if I really want to go there. What are they up to? They're in the lottery. They don't seem to be super bullish on their general manager who's been there for a really long time. could make sense. I mean, the average shelf life of a GM is, Sweeney's past that for sure. He's on year 10. So like, I do think, and going back to what Neely told Jim, like I think that absolutely, showing stability, and also for free agency, right? If you're going to go after these guys like Mitch Marner, who we've talked about, or even a Brock Besser, like it does kind of matter which GM signs you, right? Like if you're signed by a GM and that guy's gone a year later, it's like, oh crap, like this new GM might not want me. And you're right. I think Sweeney could still get canned. Like I think people are kind of forgetting that, but it does show at least that they're committed. They, at least on paper, they're committed to him for 3 years. Yeah.
And again, it is, I think, just projecting that, this team at least has somewhat of a plan. And I think, again, how they're going to execute said plan and what they're going to do to kind of right the ship. I think a lot of it does hinge on the head coach and what he's expecting, what kind of team he's looking to build, what his strategy is going to be. I think a lot of that sets the tone. But before you can do that, you have to entice some head coach to come here. And as you said, I think even if it is a coach that is desperate to break through to be a head coach, whether that's Mako Sturm or Donskov or Mitch Love or any one of those coaches, like you don't want to jump into a spot and it's Boston, it's the Bruins, the original six, all that stuff. But if it looks like a dumpster fire up top, then like why would you give up one of your, the bullets in your chamber, right, to go to a place where it's dysfunctional and there's no set long-term plan, no vision. You're there for a couple of years and all of a sudden you're in purgatory, right? Like, look at like someone like Jeff Blashill, right, who was like a really established up-and-coming, was probably like the next up-and-coming guy for a couple of years, gets to take over the Detroit Red Wings, and that's a team that just was rudderless, right? Like, he's a guy, and like I'm not even gonna like have a strong verdict of like what Jeff Blashill is as a coach, because I think he's kind of built his stock back up now that he's spent a couple of years in Tampa Bay with John Cooper. But he kind of like not wasted, but you kind of forfeit like 7, 8, 9 years of like your coaching prime or your coaching stock, I guess, because he was with a Detroit team that were they retooling, were they rebuilding, were they trying to bridge the Zetterberg Datsuk years? They were kind of trying to stay relevant his first couple of years there. Clearly didn't work. Should have ripped the Band-Aid off. And then like at that point they bought him out. And it's like, how much can you really put the blame, or how much can you really gauge what a guy like Jeff Blashill is as a coach? So I think any up and coming coach doesn't want to be in that spot where there's no vision, there's no expectations, there's no plan for what they're going to do this offseason. So yeah, I do think it was important for the Bruins, whether it's, again, a legit commitment to Sweeney for those 3 years. Again, if things go to hell, would not surprise me if we're back having this conversation again as to what his job security is. But in terms of just putting pen to paper and showing any coach that he is here under contract for the next 3 years, and it seems like there is a plan in place, I think that is huge for you trying to bring in any one of these coaches.
I also think, and I'm not an expert on this guy, but like Derek Lalonde with the Red Wings right after Blashill also seemed kind of cut from the same cloth. That was a guy who had really worked his way up. I think he was in the USHL for a long time. Like he had earned his stripes, and you get your first NHL head coaching job, and it's with, again, a rudderless franchise, which is what the Red Wings, at least right now, seem to be. I mean, if you're the Bruins, you hope the Red Wings don't find their footing anytime soon, because as we talked about on Bruins Beat, Atlantic is getting hot. Like there's a bunch of teams there who are going to be competing for the next couple of years. And you hope that if you're the Bruins, that the Red Wings are not one of those teams. I want to get to the big question, Connor, that everybody seems to be asking. I can't believe why they would ask this question, Connor. But they're asking, does Don Sweeney deserve an extension? Did he deserve the extension, or should they have moved on this offseason? We'll get to that in a second. But first, our friends over at Prize Picks. Cash in on the basketball or hockey playoffs with Prize Picks. Don't miss your last chance to add your favorite players from the court to your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's points, rebounds, assists, goals, assists, shots on net, saves, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in round, every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the takes to tickets sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. Prize Picks is also the best place to win cash while watching sports. Join millions of users and sign up today. No Boston teams in the basketball or hockey playoffs, so Prize Picks makes it more fun. The games are entertaining as hell anyway, but it adds a little zest that really gets you into these games, and I thoroughly enjoy it. So, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Go run your game over at Prize Picks. So, did Don Sweeney deserve this extension, Connor? What do you think? Was he worthy?
I would say that whatever I get, whatever I'm going to say is going to get clipped anyway. I think after the moves he did at the deadline, I think it made sense that the Bruins were going to give him an extended runway here to see what he can do to get himself out of it. And I think when you factor in, again, what you have to do to get a head coach here, on top of them wanting to give him a little bit of a leash here to see what he can do to kind of retool this team on the fly, I think it makes sense. And I also think, has Don Sweeney been perfect? No, but also, like, who would you rather hire?
Bingo.
I think that's the biggest thing is, honestly, like, we can run through, some of the top GMs out there, right? You've got Bill Zito with Florida, who I think has been unreal the last couple of years. You've got Breezeball in Tampa. You got Jim Nill in Dallas. Armstrong in St. Louis has been really good for a while now. And there's like kind of that set group. And you can say Don Sweeney's maybe not in that group, but I think he's a better above average. If not, he's had some really good moves as a GM. Who do you want then? Because you've got Ken Holland now with the LA Kings, and you've got there's been other rumors of the Islanders looking at like Mark Bergevin and these guys. Like, that who you want? Or are you looking for the next wonderkind or something like that? Which Tulsky in Carolina, again, the team's been good and he's a really smart guy, but looked a little bit deer in the headlights with how he handled the Rantanen thing and the fallout of that and the press conference afterwards. Looked a little shook. So is that what you want as well? And so I think the big thing is everyone's like the French after the Revolution. They just want to put everyone in the guillotine, want heads to roll, and then it's like, all right, yeah. I guess Lou Lamoriello. Oh, he wants us all to shave our beard. Oh, what? Who do you want to fucking sign? No, that is, I think, the issue is you want heads to roll, but then all right, the frenzy's down, the party's over. Who do you want?
It's you want to burn it.
That is, I think, the biggest issue. Who is out there that you're immediately turning to? Unless you want to be give it to Evan Gold, who I think is great at what he does, and can make the case he's going to continue to rise up through the ranks of the Bruins organization. I think that's valid. But is that who you want to turn to, or do you just want to fire Don Sweeney and let chaos reign? Right? I think that is what is the next shoe to drop there. If you are a Bruins fan, I think if you give me a good answer, then I'd agree with it. But people, I don't think, want to get to that point.
That's my biggest thing is what's your next move? Do you just want to burn it down? Or you want to and again, Evan Gold is the GM of Providence, has done a great job so far. I think is kind of working into being the next GM. But are you really at this point, do you want to hand the reins over to someone where it's really an inflection point in this franchise where it's you are kind of rebuilding, sort of more retooling. You still have important pieces, all those different things. And you're going to hand that over to a first-time GM that's a big, huge step. And there are names out there a Matthew Darsh with Tampa that I think is good. But I agree with you. Do you also who's taking over? If you were to fire Don Sweeney and promote Evan Gold, Bruins fans would still be probably friggin' pissed because it's still an internal guy, right? Yes, we want someone from the outside. They'd be like, who the hell is this? Evan Marinofsky. Who is that? Exactly. And so again, if you were to, and sure, I issue that challenge, and Bruins fans are now find the AGM of Colorado or all these other guys, and you could build a list together. People, I think, more just want to fire Sweeney. And they just don't have any plan. Was it on the radio yesterday that they were mentioning Lamoriello? It's Lamoriello, after he's done building the most boring fucking teams of the 90s that were good, he's been washed. He's been a grouchy, old, shitty GM. That's who you want? And what's funny is now that the people hear that, they're going to say, oh, go get the next Lou Lamoriello. It's like, oh, okay. Like you have fun go finding the next Lou Lamoriello.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing is that. And the other thing I heard on the radio yesterday, and I've heard people kind of say over a long stretch of time, is like, Don Sweeney's never going to get you a cup. He's not a cup contending GM. He'll get you in the playoffs and that's it. Isn't that kind of their job to get you to the playoffs? The players need to win the cup. But the other thing is, to add on to that, 2022-23, he went balls to the wall. And that was we can all agree, that was a Stanley Cup favorite team. They blew it. The players, the coaches, they blew that, right? You look at 2019, they get to within a game away from the Cup in Game 7, right? Like, they didn't show up for that. Now, you can argue that they should have had another top 6 forward on that roster. They went out and got Charlie Coyle. They tried for that. They tried for Marcus Johansson. The year before, they tried for Rick Nash, all those different things. He goes for it. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. They've failed to find value in the draft for years. We can all agree on that, right? But they've won a lot, and he's gotten them. It's sort of like Brady in 2001, where like he gets you to a spot where you're supposed to be able to kick a field goal from, right? Like, to me, that's what Sweeney has done so far. And this past season, by the way, like with the free agent acquisitions, didn't work in year one.
No.
Didn't work. Like, I will firmly put this past season mainly on Don Sweeney. Like, no problem there. But that doesn't mean he doesn't get the chance to right the wrongs and to fix some of the mess that he's created and to get another chance at draft picks and another free agency. So that's my biggest thing is like, again, like, I think the narrative that he's not a cup contending GM, I think is wrong because he's put together cup contending teams. 2019-20 President's Trophy team, like they were that good. I mean, that's not like, oh, they were just, the will to win in the 82 games was so incredible. No, that was a pretty good roster. Yeah, of course there were areas to add. I thought the trade.
Yeah, I thought the 2019-20 team, if like COVID didn't happen, like a lot of things would have changed. But like I thought that team was poised for a pretty good run. That team had like they were looking to kind of right the wrong of what that past year was. That was a super motivated team that was pretty pissed, obviously, of how that last year ended. But like they had the makings of a really, really good run, and then kind of it all went to shit, unfortunately. So
yeah, and I think that, again, it goes back to like, again, he has not been a perfect GM. We have criticized him time and again, but to be like, nope, time to move on, fire him. Like, again, I just go back to what you made the initial point of is like, who do you want to replace him? Who is the next guy?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, and we're not. Don Sweeney's not giving us a check for hyping him up here or anything like that.
I
think, yeah, like
the crap we're going to take for saying what we just said.
He's not perfect, right? And there's been good moves and there's been some really bad moves, and it's very easy to spot the flaws of when things go wrong here. He's not the perfect GM. But who is? Who is the perfect GM you want to replace him with? I'm waiting. Like, tell me. Like, it's the whole thing, and I don't have the energy nor the sanity to all people were replying to me about Sweeney of like this insane that they kept him. It's like, who do you want to replace him with? It's the same thing as like the people who are like, we talked about this on Bruins Beat about like, it's sort of similar to the Mitch Marner thing where I get the criticism, right? And I'm not going to be like punching down, being like, you idiot, like you're wrong. I'll disagree with you, right? But
yes.
If you're like, we don't want Mitch Marner, like we're not wasting our money on that fucking guy. And it's like, oh, who do you want? Okay, like you can't do that, Ben.
Nikolai Ehlers.
Or it's like, yeah, we want Nikolai Ehlers. I'm like, oh, look at his playoff numbers too. Like, oh, we want Lou Lamoriello. Look what he's done with the Islanders. Other than signing shit contracts and being a raging prick.
It's the grass.
Going to bed at 6:45 p.m. every night. Like, you want that guy?
No, I don't. And that's what I keep going back to. Is like, again, who do you want? I hear that all the time. Fire Sweeney. Okay, then who do you want? And people go, oh, Patrice Bergeron or like Zdeno Chara. And it's like, they don't have the experience yet to be able to do that. Maybe 10 to 15 years down the road if they get into it. Sure. But the idea that like they're going to step in and be the GM automatically and wheel and deal. And by the way, and we'll get into this right now, like Bruins got a first round pick officially from the Marchand trade. That trade deadline continues to age well. That's the other thing. Like, are you really going to fire Sweeney after that deadline? And Fluto wrote about this on Tuesday. Like, Sweeney has been very bold over the years. Started when he initially arrived, trading Dougie Hamilton, trading Milan Lucic. You saw it in 22-23 going balls to the wall. Bertuzzi and Orloff and those guys. And then you have, this past year where you're trading Brad Marchand and you're trading Trent Frederick and Brazeau and getting more and getting value in Coyle and Carlo and all those things. And suddenly now you have 5 first-round picks over the next 3 years along with 4 seconds. Like, you can't – he did well. He did well at that deadline.
Even like the last time he was a lame duck GM going into a season like with an expiring contract, he literally traded for Hampus Lindholm, where you acquire a guy, give up assets, addresses a major flaw right then on that team in terms of that area, your decor, and then immediately sign him to a long-term extension. Like that's, if that all of a sudden aged poorly, or like he was kind of the guy Lindholm where, still a good player, but like, was he plateaued or was he like starting to slightly decline with Anaheim? Like when that trade happened and the extension was struck, a lot of like, people who do the stuff of like grading contracts immediately are like, this one's not going to age very well. And it's
we looked at the advanced stats and we were like, I don't know if this is the best signing.
We'll see what happens in 2-3 years, right? We'll see how he comes back from the knee injury, right? But he literally was like a top 5 Norris candidate in his like first full season with the team. And again, like this past year, he was probably their best skater before he got hurt. And then it wasn't even his best year in 23-24. I think we all agree on that. But also then went sicko mode in Game 7 and like almost single-handedly with him and Swayman and I guess Pasternak. But him and Swayman won Game 7 of that Toronto game. Like he's been worth the deal. And that's a guy that, again, a lame duck GM acquired and helped you in the present and obviously the years after bringing him aboard. So he's not afraid to be bold in these spots. And as you said, like, hell, what's going to happen when we get to like November and like, who knows what the Bruins are doing, but like Will Zeller's got 9 goals in his first 15 games at UND. And that's just one piece of the equation, right? Like the Bruins have to hit on all these picks. And not saying they're going to hit on all of them, but you got to acquire talent. You got to bring in guys, at least give you some hope for the future. But they've got a lot of chances to take a swing and bringing in these guys with all these first and seconds they've had the next couple of years. It's a good spot to be in, and it's all a result of Sweeney acknowledging what a lot of teams don't do of like, this ain't it. Let's rip off the Band-Aid. It's going to hurt. It's going to fucking suck, but look what we got from it. So,
and by the way, if these draft picks in 3 years don't pan out and they missed, and free agents and Elias Lindholm continues to stink, and these free agent signings don't work, I will gladly sit here and go, look, gotta let go Sweeney. Didn't do well with he did not complete. He didn't get he got a chance to right the wrong and he made it worse. You need to move on. You need fresh eyes. You need a whole new person. I will gladly sit here and do that. But today's not one of those days. It isn't. And I know that people want to bash Sweeney. I get it. I get that you guys don't like him. He can be, he can be annoying at times. Trust me, us in the media certainly feel that way on some of those answers. Trust me, like it's not like he's like amazing to the media, and it's like, oh, we love talking to him so much that's why we defend him. Like, no, like if you look at the whole game board, like, and I'm not firing the guy right now. I'm just not.
I agree.
Bruins get a first from the Panthers, 2027 top 10 protected, 2028, I believe it's unprotected. We kind of touched on that already, sort of, again, like that's another first. You mentioned this on Bruins Beat, and I think it's an interesting thing to kind of explore, and it's more projecting than anything, but like if the Panthers did age a little bit and got worse over the next couple of years and move into that like lottery team thing.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
Not saying they're gonna, but you can ask that question.
Yeah. I mean, I think like a baseline, it's good that you just have multiple firsts, and you can use that either for just trade capital if need be. And that is really, valuable in terms of having, the flexibility to move off a top trade chip while also keeping your own first or keeping theirs, using yours, what have you. Gives you more options. But even if like Toronto's first next year and Florida's in 27, 28, like even if they were in the 20s, there's value there. You can get a lineup regular that way. But now, like when you look at where Toronto is, and like I still think Toronto's going to be good, but are they no longer like the 27th overall pick? And are they more like, low 20s? Are they like 19 or something like that?
18?
If they have,
yeah.
If that's like a legitimate thing, we'll see what they do. They're going to sign like Sam Bennett and Marchand now just to spite us. But
they're going to win the cup next year.
But it's not as much of a sure bet, right? There's a little bit more uncertainty with a Toronto team that feels like they're at an inflection point. The same thing with Florida in 2027, where some of those guys are aging out, or even like 2028. Even if it gets moved to 2028, it's almost like you'd still take that, where if it's unprotected, I think the further you go back from this core that Florida currently has, the better your chances of getting a top pick. So wherever they do land, right, in terms of where those picks settle in on the draft board, it just gives the Bruins options. Like, all of a sudden you can then use a first to acquire a impact talent for right now or a young up-and-coming player while still retaining your first. And I think it's just, you look at like their cupboard of draft picks the next couple of years, you're in a good spot. You can keep some and take a swing at trying to, develop your own talent, or you can also use it if need be. But I do wonder if once we get to the point of the offseason, we're talking about trades or targeting younger players in trades, where the people are now not as ready to, trade Toronto's first. We don't need it. When all of a sudden, maybe it's more value than expected. Oh, trade 20s. We're all going to be dead in 2028 anyway. Trade that first for Florida. And all of a sudden it looks in a couple of years like it's a good pick. It's a good problem to have if you're the Bruins in terms of what you're getting out of that pick and the value you have with it. Yeah.
So I'm looking at the ages of Panthers regulars and Panthers core people. Like Barkov's 29, Kachuk's 27, Reinhardt's 29, Anton Lundell's 23, Bennett's 28, Verhaeghe's 29, like Lustoranen's 26.
How old is Bob?
Bob is 36. He's 36 years old.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
I just say, well, I remember when he was with the Flyers when I was a kid. He played against the Bruins in 2011. Yeah. But like still 36 on D. Ekblad's 29. Jones is 30. Forsling's 28. Mikkel is 29. Kulikov's 34. Schmidt's 33. So like again,
they could still be pretty good. That
they could still be good. They could still be good. But
that team's horrifying.
Like, okay, 2 years, Barkov's 31. Like, is there going to be that big of a drop-off? Kachuk will be 29, 30. Like, is that going to be that big of a drop-off? So, again, you hope that they take a step back, at least. Maybe in net. Maybe they're struggling for a goalie. And then, again, there may be like an 18th pick or a 19th pick in a couple of years. But still, I think there's interesting value there. The Panthers are not, or at least they shouldn't be, like a cup regular every single year for the next bunch of years. Yeah. Knowing our luck, they somehow will be. And suddenly we'll be sitting here like, all right, well, Bruins get the 31st pick in 2027. Another thing, Bruins are doing pretty well at Worlds. Pastrnak is like leading the tournament in scoring. Elias Lindholm's been really good. Pastrnak did have a goal on Swayman. I think it was on Tuesday. I think the big thing is Lindholm, having him be as, he ended the season on a high note, seems to be continuing at Worlds. Like, again, I think you're building that momentum into next year and you're hoping that he can fulfill more of his contract and be like a top line center.
Yeah, I think, Pastrnak, I think it's to be expected that he's leading the tournament in points. There's no surprise there. There's not much you're reading into. I think it's good. You have Lauko getting experience there. Lashmelis, again, I think Latvia is officially out now, but he's a guy that is just riding the wave of a really, really good, strong season. He's a guy that I think is going to be really fun to see how he develops next year and just how I think he's really elevated his stock. Not even like over the span of like the full year. It's not like he had he was good with UMass, right? But he wouldn't have like a 50-point season.
Completely.
But since going pro, he's really asserted himself as a guy that's worth keeping tabs on next year. So that's really encouraging to see. He's going to get a lot of experience in international competition next year with Latvia in the Olympics too. And we're not surprised if he has a big goal or two there in that tournament against the NHL's best. But yeah, I think Elias Lindholm now 7 goals in the tournament. I don't think that Lindholm is the biggest key in terms of riding the ship next year. But if what you saw at the end of last year in the regular season with him and Geeky, if that can continue, or at least be 80% of what they were when they were pretty much like a 5-on-5 buzzsaw the last month plus of the year, it at least gives you, I think, some hope that that's a line you don't have to touch. Like that line, keep them in place, and that is a functioning, effective top 6 grouping. You hope that whether it was injuries, adjustments, kind of just how bad training camp was, it just wasn't Lindholm's year. And again, it's not to say that he's going to be an 80-point guy next year, but I do think there's optimism that he can at least be a functional top 6 solid player, especially on a line with David Pastrnak. So that's encouraging. And then also Jeremy Swayman. I know he had that one really bad game against Norway, and I think people look at that and be like, oh, not great. But also Swayman, I think, is 4-0 with a 1.97 goals against in the tournament right now. Gave up a goal to David Pastrnak in the game against Czechia yesterday on Monday, or Tuesday rather. But as a whole, was pretty good in that game as well. And for him, as he's trying to reassert himself, remain in the competition for Team USA, not a starting spot there, I don't think so, but one of the 3 spots with Ottinger and Hellebuck and those guys most likely. Encouraging to see. And as now we get to the knockout stages of Worlds, if Swayman can continue to play well, that is encouraging in terms of just helping his own personal stock and then just setting the new page, writing a new chapter for next year, because you'll take Lindholm being better and that will help you out. The biggest determinant next year of where the Bruins are going to be is if Jeremy Swayman regains his form. That is the biggest key next year.
If he's great next year, you are in the thick of things. You're
like second in the Atlantic. You're like third in the Atlantic, I think, as like a lock if he is a league average goalie this past year. And that team in front of him was also bad. Like it shows you just how much that it would have changed their fortunes if he was just not even last year Swayman or playoff Swayman 24. Like a league average goalie probably gets you into the playoffs.
Well, I always say, like, with this 24-25 team, I think when we look back on it, really was defined by Lindholm not fitting in as the top line center and everything kind of going out of whack. And Swayman, obviously the beginning of the year, he had his contract things, and then the rest of the year was kind of underwater and wasn't playing well and was giving up a ton of goals. And both those things threw you off. So again, if those guys can have good worlds and go into the off season and get right and come into next training camp and be ready to go, like, you're in such a different spot if Elias Lindholm can be, as you said, a 65-point first-line center, and Swayman can be, above average goalie in the NHL. So encouraging things from Worlds. But the big thing, Don Sweeney gets extended. So that's the big thing of this episode. I'm sure we'll have many comments, and we will read them. And we will, again, you mentioned it. We don't want to be like, oh, you're idiots, you stupid people, blah, 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 blah. We're not like that. We're always open to disagreement. We like that. But anyway, Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at the Globe and Boston.com. We've covered every step of the way this Bruins offseason, whether it's the head coaching search, free agency, trades, the draft, whole bunch of stuff going on. So we have you covered every step of the way. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever it's called these days, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.